joined today by Joe Kahn, Democratic candidate for Pennsylvania's Attorney General. Why are you seeking this office?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Francine. And I'm running for Attorney General because I think Pennsylvania needs an Attorney General who will keep Pennsylvanians safe from crime, corruption, and attacks on our rights. That's the work I've been doing for 24 years, and that's the work I want to continue to do for all Pennsylvanians.
Now, you served as both a local and federal prosecutor as well as county solicitor. Can you talk a little bit about those roles and how that experience would help you serve as Attorney General?
Yeah, it's why I want this office. The Attorney General's office is unique in having both criminal and civil enforcement powers, and I have unmatched experience in both those areas to address everyday people's problems. So whether it's taking on opioid companies, using criminal and civil powers to hold them accountable and get relief for communities like we've had in Pennsylvania, or it's taking on new issues like the housing crisis that we have all over Pennsylvania. I want to use the skills that I developed as a federal prosecutor, as a public interest lawyer, and a county solicitor to make sure that we're using the AG's office to address all those problems for the first time in some cases.
Is there a particular type of case you've argued that's been most meaningful to you?
Well, certainly as a prosecutor, advocating for justice for victims of crime has been particularly important to everyone impacted, certainly victims of child abuse and sexual assault. But when I think more recently of the work that I've done as a county solicitor, taking on the social media giants who targeted kids, made a youth mental health crisis even worse. I'm particularly proud of that work because I wasn't just doing that as a county solicitor, but I was doing that as a parent. And I think that that's what people want in their Attorney General, is someone who's going to think about what they're going through every day and use the power of that office to make things better.
For those not familiar, what are the most significant roles that are served by the state Attorney General?
Well, the way I see it, the Attorney General needs to keep us all safe from crime, corruption, and attacks on our rights. So as a prosecutor, the Attorney General plays a leadership role in not only taking on very specific areas that only the Attorney General can take on, but also playing a supportive role for district attorneys' offices throughout Pennsylvania. In many cases, there are DA's offices that don't have the experience to handle very important cases that the AG can provide relief on and support. The Attorney General also has the exclusive power to bring certain lawsuits on behalf of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. They can do that by themselves. They can do that in partnership with the governor's office or sometimes with DA's offices. And that's what's so exciting, is that there's these incredible powers in so many areas that the Attorney General uniquely has. And I want to make sure that we're using that office to think about what are the problems that everyday Pennsylvanians are dealing with and how can we use this office to solve them.
Do you think the state Attorney General is seen as a political position?
Well, certainly you have to be elected to get there. And I think that's really the challenge that we have as Pennsylvanians, is making sure that we have somebody who both has the experience and the leadership that we need to run that office, but also can make sure that we win this office. And I am running as a Democrat. And this has been a really hard office for Democrats to win. Republicans have painted Democrats as soft on crime, as unserious about public safety. Now, I am running in this race with the most experience of any candidate as a prosecutor, and I'm not going to allow my party to be lectured on public safety by anyone. But we have to do more than win the argument on public safety. We need to make sure that we close the enthusiasm gap that Democrats are facing all over the country. And I am excited to be coming to this role with this incredibly enthusiastic and diverse coalition of support to make sure that we win this office. But then as we govern in this office, that we make sure we have an AG's office that shows up for all Pennsylvanians.
As you talk about there being a Republican, perhaps, perception that Democrats are soft on crime, how do you argue against that perception?
I think the best way is to lead with credibility. And when I look people in the eye and I tell them that I'm going to keep them safe, I'm not just giving an aspirational statement. I'm telling about the work that I've done. You know, no one asked me if I was a Republican or Democrat when I went to the Philadelphia DA's office and stood up for victims of some of the most heinous crimes you can imagine. You know, I was appointed by a Republican U.S. attorney and served under multiple administrations when I served in the U.S. Attorney's office, working with folks who were just more interested on serving the public than our ideological differences. And that's the credibility and the work that I've been doing for 24 years. And that's what people need to hear. I think people don't want to hear about career politicians who just want to run for another office. They want serious people who are going to take their problems seriously and have a serious plan to get things done. And that's why I'm running.
What are your top priorities if you're elected?
So first of all, we need to make sure that we continue to keep people safe, right? And I uniquely bring to this role the experience at the county level of working as both a prosecutor and a solicitor. So that's going to allow us to have a 67 county strategy for public safety. Once we do that, we need to make sure that we stand up for all of our rights. This is the work that I've done in Bucks County, defending the right to vote, defending the right to abortion, and defending our constitutional right to a clean environment. And once we take care of those initiatives on day one, we need to think about the new things that the AG can take on. Issues like the housing crisis, where by starting a housing justice unit, we can use the power of this office to take on crises that haven't been addressed by an AG before, and we could keep going. We have to make sure we stay on top of big tech and address the development of AI in ways that only the AG can do. And I'm so excited that we have such an outpouring of support from people who want to see an active Attorney General with not only the vision to execute this kind of plan, but the credibility and the record to give people confidence that we can do it.
I'd like to talk in specifics about some of those initiatives that you talk about. First of all, you've been an advocate for protecting reproductive rights. Why has that been important to you?
Well, I first learned about the word abortion when I was about 8 years old. My mom was raised Catholic, but as soon as she got out of nursing school, she went to work in the ER in Philadelphia. And she cared for women whose stories inspired me to become a sex crimes prosecutor. And many of those women tried to get abortions, but didn't have the ability to get safe abortion care. And she told me about a young mother who came into her ER, had tried to get a safe abortion and couldn't. And that young woman died in my mom's hospital. That's how I learned not only what the word abortion meant, but the importance of making sure that women are never put at risk again. And I'm going to make sure that we continue to use the power of that office to defend that right. I was targeted for being the only county solicitor in Pennsylvania to use the power of my office to defend access to the abortion pill. And I didn't flinch when those attacks came. And I'm going to use the power of the AG's office to defend what I see as a constitutional right to reproductive freedom, to make sure that we keep not only women in Pennsylvania safe, but those who are visiting our state to be safe from these attacks.
You said that you'd like to enact a 67-county strategy for public safety. What does that look like?
I think the first thing it does is extending a helping hand and reaching out to all of the district attorneys of Pennsylvania in friendship and partnership. I'm really proud of my record as a prosecutor and as a county solicitor, and all the great things that I've done in government have done by working together with other people and bringing people together. When I defended the election in 2020, it wasn't just on behalf of Bucks County. When we fought Donald Trump and fought him all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, we brought the county solicitors of Pennsylvania together. It's the same approach in public safety. DAs are part of the solution. Their local police are part of the solution. We have mayors and other stakeholders and community groups, and it's important to get everyone together at the table. And so as the Attorney General of the state, we not only have the platform, the visibility, but has someone who has been a career prosecutor who has worked really productively with DAs from both parties, like in Bucks County. We had a historic partnership between a Democratic county solicitor and a Republican district attorney who worked together for our constituents to get things done. And it's that same spirit of cooperation that I'm going to bring to the table to work with all of our DAs in keeping people safe.
What would you do to protect Pennsylvanians from gun violence?
Well, I would approach gun violence in 2024 and 2025 the same way we approached it 15 years ago when I was a federal prosecutor leading the violent crime impact team in the U.S. Attorney's Office. Number one, we need to get everyone together. We need to be thoughtful about how we use the incredible power of government to intervene and save lives. Now, we did that by interrupting what were called retaliatory cycles of violence, stopping the shooting that was often being committed by a small group of people in the areas where we were focused, and using that power of prosecution and arrest to stop the violence and make sure that we intervened in that way. But then thinking bigger, making sure that we were using the power of our office to then develop cases against gun traffickers, to solve homicides, and ultimately working together, bringing the gun violence rate down. We did that 15 years ago. We can do it again. It requires vision, it requires creativity, and it requires leadership. And those are the skills that I bring to the AG's office.
You said if elected, you'd like to establish a housing justice unit. What do you see as the greatest threats to safe, affordable housing?
I think it looks different in every community. And I think the consistent thread that runs through the public crisis that we're looking at with housing, whether you're talking about rural communities, folks that are living in mobile home communities, or suburban communities where there's a shortage of housing that's attainable, or urban communities where you often have imbalances between tenants and landlords, or folks who don't have a say in what developers are doing. The consistent theme is that we don't have community input and we don't have a champion in an office like the Attorney General's office. So I want to make sure that we get everyone together. We get folks who have lots of different perspectives and help us get this right. We have criminal enforcement, we have civil enforcement, and by looking holistically at the problem, we can use the AG's office to address this issue in Pennsylvania.
You've said you'd like to make sure that you defend the state's constitutional rights amendment. Who do you see as the biggest defender of the state's environmental protection?
It should be the Attorney General. The Attorney General has, in my view, a superpower with Article 1, Section 27 of Pennsylvania's Constitution. It guarantees that the people have a right to a clean environment, and it requires everyone in government to abide by that right and to enforce it. And the Attorney General is uniquely situated to go to court to take action to protect that right. It's why I went into court as a county solicitor to enforce that right. It's the reason that I've been endorsed by the Clean Air Action Fund that has described me as an environmental champion, not only because of my record as a county solicitor, but because of the boldness of my vision. And at the end of the day, I'm running for this office for my kids. And someday they're going to ask me if I did everything in my power to leave them with a safer world and a better environment. And I know that with this opportunity that we have in this office, Pennsylvania can be not just a national, but a global leader in protecting our environment and building a better world for all of our families.
Where do you see the balance between protecting the environment and being able to provide safe, affordable energy?
I think those things go hand in hand. And I think that we have to continue to be thoughtful and collaborative in these solutions. And I think that some of the strongest advocates of a clean environment will also be some of the same strongest advocates for making sure that we have good paying jobs. And I think these are win-win outcomes that we just need credible voices to provide leadership on. And that's why I'm so excited to do this.
You've said you'd like to force insurance companies to be able to provide affordable mental health care for those that are in need. How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, Pennsylvania has a number of tools that the Attorney General uniquely can use. They include our consumer protection law, which prevents businesses from being able to use deceptive or unfair practices to exploit consumers. And we have seen all throughout Pennsylvania people that are paying for health insurance that aren't getting full access to mental health care coverage. And this is particularly difficult for people who have children with special needs who need to be able to get access. They're paying their premiums, they're doing everything right, and yet they can't get the mental health coverage that their kids need. And this is a problem that we need leadership on. And as Attorney General, I have the experience of taking on insurance companies. I know how hard the work is, but we can do it if we have a plan and we have the boldness to do it. And I'm excited to take this work on.
Why has this been a priority for you?
Because I know what people are dealing with every day. You and I talked about my brother Tarek, who works in the healthcare space, and I hear his stories of what his patients are dealing with. And it's not fair that there are people who do everything right and they deserve access to healthcare and they're not able to get it. And I think that there are great insurance companies doing great work, but at the same time, they need to treat people fairly. And we talked about the mental health disparity, which is one of these areas where we need to make sure that we're not stigmatizing mental health treatment, that we make sure that we give everyone who needs help the help that they deserve. And that's one of the ways that I can provide leadership, is because I've understood and I've done the work of taking on companies like insurance companies. We can do the work. We just need to be thoughtful and to get it done.
As with 2020, there's an anticipation that this year's election results will once again be challenged. What can you do as Attorney General to ensure that our election is safe and valid?
Yeah, we have to get this right on day one. The next Attorney General is going to be managing very complex litigation that is challenging the election. When I fought Donald Trump and took him all the way to the Supreme Court, these cases went well beyond November of 2020. We were litigating these challenges in 2021 and 2022. So we, number one, need to get that right. Number two, as difficult and challenging as that work was back in 2020, we didn't have any election deniers in county government in Pennsylvania. And now they have found comfort in all places, including in Pennsylvania. And so we're going to have to be ready to take government itself to court to make sure that we protect the right to vote. So being both defensive and proactive is going to be essential for the Attorney General in terms of going to court to protect our right to vote. But we have to do more than that. We have to be credible. I'm really proud not only of the work that we did in Bucks County to protect our right to vote and in leading counties across Pennsylvania in defending that right, but I'm particularly proud that after the election was over, the chairs of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party came together jointly and said that the election was fair and square, there was no election fraud, that Joe Biden was fairly elected. And they were able to do that because we provided credible leadership. And I think a lot of that just comes from the nuts and bolts of navigating political spaces with a point of view, but with the sense that people are being treated fairly and that you're going to uphold their rights no matter who they voted for or what party they're in.
What can you do to protect Pennsylvania entities from cyber threats?
Well, the first thing we have to do is make sure that we understand what's happening, right? And this is one of the areas where the Attorney General has a unique role in terms of having a consumer protection office that is hearing about threats and concerns from people. So we have to think about both levels, both our government being safe, and that's where the Attorney General can represent the Commonwealth. But then we have to think about everyday people, whether it's consumers, whether it's voters, whether it's patients. And the Attorney General needs to be doing both. We need to make sure that we use this office to guard against these threats, working collaboratively with other agencies and staying ahead of the curve. It's one of the reasons I continue to talk everywhere I go about the importance of making sure that we stay ahead of the development of AI, because this is developing at a very, very rapid pace, more rapid than I think our legislature is able to keep up with. And it's the Attorney General who is uniquely positioned to go into court when the facts are there to make sure that we protect our voters, we protect our constituents, and we protect those who might be under attack by cyber attacks.
Since you brought up artificial intelligence, what specific areas of artificial intelligence are particularly concerning for you, and how do you provide protections regarding that?
I mean, I think there's an infinite list of potential threats, and you could look at the attempts to manipulate elections and to deceive voters about what candidates are saying, right? And you can look at the threat to workers' rights with AI really developing at a pace that is so quick that we haven't been able to catch up to think about the implications for protecting collective bargaining agreements and workers who need an AG to stand up. And so really, I think the most important thing that we can do is ask the right questions so that when the Attorney General is able to take action and do it swiftly, we're in position to do that.
What initially interested you in public service?
Well, I was really raised with a strong ethos of serving our community. I wasn't raised in a political family, but, my dad came here from Pakistan, and he never let my brother and me forget how lucky we are to be born in this country. And so I remember on the first day of heavy snow every year, my dad would wake us up before he went to work because he'd get up at the crack of dawn to go to a city job, and he'd make us shovel the snow, shovel the sidewalks of every block, every house on our block. And it didn't matter who it was, if it was our parents' best friends or folks that didn't treat us nicely. We had to go up and down the block and shovel every single driveway and every single sidewalk. And it wasn't until I became a parent that I started to understand what my dad was trying to teach us, which is that if you're lucky enough to be in this country and you're able-bodied and you see people need help, in this case, my neighbors didn't have kids around, there were a lot of empty nesters, well, then you have an obligation to go to the shed and get your shovel out and get to work. And that's very much the way I was raised, was to be a good neighbor and to serve our community, and that's how I ended up getting in public service.
You've said that the state needs an Attorney General that's involved in immigrant communities. Why is that important to you? Yeah,
because too many immigrant communities aren't being heard. A lot of the great portals we talked about, the consumer hotlines that we have, in Attorneys General's offices across the country and in other offices, and a lot of people don't have the ability to make those phone calls because of language barriers. Too many folks are taking these communities for granted, and I have been living not just around Pakistani or Asian American communities my whole life, but immigrant communities more broadly. And it's really important that we have government in general that engages with these communities to make sure that their needs are being heard. The example I think of is in Bucks County. When we started to listen to these communities to hear what their concerns were, we found out in a lot of Spanish-speaking areas in Bucks County, people were concerned about used car dealers taking advantage of them. And because we listened to those concerns, we created, for the first time ever, a Bill of Rights for used car buyers. And now in Bucks County, if you buy a used car, you have a Bill of Rights. And now everyone is protected because we showed up and listened to immigrant communities that weren't being heard before. And that's the kind of approach I think we need in the Attorney General's office.
What are you doing to get your message out for this campaign?
Well, we're going all across Pennsylvania, meeting voters, engaging people. It's been incredibly inspirational to have people trust me with their stories to tell. And so besides going out on the road, we're getting our message out the good old-fashioned way of getting out through commercials and mail, and really just talking to people directly and making sure that they know that they can have confidence in someone who understands Pennsylvania needs an Attorney General who will keep them safe. And the response has been overwhelming. That's how we built this diverse coalition that runs from the Southwest to the Northeast. It's diverse in every way, and we're asking folks to join us. And when we do, people are excited. And it continues to get larger and broader and more enthusiastic, and that's what keeps us going.
When you talk to voters, are there common concerns that you hear frequently?
Yeah, I mean, some of the issues we've talked about today. I do hear about housing concerns a lot from folks. I hear about crime and public safety a lot. And consistently, what I think people expect is that they're going to have people in roles like this that are going to do something about it. And I think sometimes we've set the bar too low. When I talk to people about how we're going to use this office to get environmental justice for their communities, it's a new idea for folks. And I think that we should really demand better of our government and demand more. And so we've got a really exciting response from people when they talk about some of these concerns that they've had, that we've already come up with an idea for how we're going to make things better, and we really want people's input. So it's really been a conversation with the voters of Pennsylvania, and I've been honored to get to have it.
What have you learned from running this campaign?
Well, one of the things I've learned, in particular, has been getting out to rural communities where I haven't spent as much time during my legal career, and hearing about some of the unique concerns. We go out to Western Pennsylvania, for example, where people that have told us about the impact of fracking has had on the health effects of their families, and we hear from people about their concerns about unchecked growth of corporations like hospitals and insurance companies, right, where they are expecting someone in the AG's office to do something about it. It's how we started to get a better understanding of the housing crisis in rural areas. So it's really a privilege to have to go across Pennsylvania and meet people that you've never met before, and go into communities that are welcoming you for the first time, and find out what you could do to help folks and be part of the solution.
Talk a little bit about some of the endorsements you've received and their significance to you. Yeah,
so as we talked about, I'm particularly excited to be the candidate of the environmental movement, to have the support of the Clean Air Action Fund. Here, in the Harrisburg area, we have an unbelievable coalition of legislators that is incredibly diverse. It is legislators in the Senate and the House who are both from very, very competitive districts, some of the last to flip districts in places like Montgomery County and Bucks County and Chester County. It is geographically diverse. It is folks from very progressive areas. It is a coalition of people who have come together around someone that they trust to lead the party and to lead the office. We are supported by the Asian Pacific Islander Political Alliance, which supports Asian Pacific American communities in political engagement. We're also endorsed by Second Generation. We're endorsed by Impact. These are all groups that are excited about electing the first ever Asian American, but we have support of groups like the Philadelphia Metal Trades Council, which supports our shipyard workers in Philadelphia, and the list goes on. It's an incredibly diverse and eclectic group of supporters. We have been endorsed by the Bucks County Democratic Party overwhelmingly, and in Philadelphia, where the Democratic wards have cast their votes, we have overwhelmingly won those endorsements, and we've won it with enthusiastic majorities of 60, 70, 80, 90+%. And as I said, this enthusiastic coalition keeps growing. People keep getting more excited, and we're excited to continue to build it as we go forward.
How important of a role does fundraising play?
Yeah, it's critical. Without having the resources to compete, you can't win elections. And it's not the only thing that matters, right? You have to have the money to get your message out, but you have to have the message and you have to have the messenger. And I think those things all go hand in hand. It's one of the reasons that we've been so successful at fundraising, because we've been engaging people that are often disaffected with politics or the Democratic Party, that are excited by my campaign and want to be part of something big and something exciting and something that's going to make things better. So we're going to continue to succeed in this campaign by doing politically, fundraising-wise, the same thing, which is to appeal to a large group of people with an incredibly inspirational message and bring people together in support of this campaign.
How do you distinguish yourself from the other candidates running for Attorney General?
Well, I'm the only person running, number one, who has the breadth of experience I have as a prosecutor, as I said, with the longest and strongest record as a prosecutor and in civil justice. But it's more than that. We are building this enthusiastic coalition, this diverse coalition. That's what we need, not just to win the primary here in Pennsylvania, but the general election. And by having a candidate who can do all those things at once is something really unique and exciting for folks.
What accomplishments are you most proud of?
Well, we've talked about some of them, certainly. It's the work that I've done both as a prosecutor and as a county solicitor, and in some cases, standing in the shoes as a dad. But I'm particularly proud, outside of the work I've done as an attorney, of some of the things I've done as a dad for the sake of my kids. In the Central Bucks School District, we had these extremists who took over their school boards. They started calling themselves the Moms for Liberty. And I'm really proud of the work that my kids and I did on the ground, knocking doors, hosting events, working the polls to throw them out and get new leadership in to get our schools back and to get sanity back, not just for my kids, but for all kids in the school district. So that didn't require a lot of lawyering, but it required a lot of hard work and a lot of commitment of a lot of great people. And I was honored to be part of that movement. And I'm even more honored to have the endorsements of all those new school directors who've endorsed me, and also the support of so many people in that grassroots army that are now part of my campaign that want to continue the work that we're doing to stand up for people, to make sure that we stand up for public education, we stand up for our families, and we do it together.
Why would you like voters to elect you as the Democratic nominee for State Attorney General?
Because I'm the candidate who can win and make sure that we don't let the Republicans take this office back. That really our rights are at stake if we allow the Republicans to take back what has normally been an easier office for them to win. But I'm also the person best situated to lead this office. I have unmatched experience. I have a vision that is broad that will make sure that we use this office in ways it's never been used before to stand up for all Pennsylvanians, and I'm honored to ask for their support.
Joe Kahn is seeking the Democratic nomination for State Attorney General. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, friend.